Have you ever walked into a room thinking you were finally being celebrated, only to realize you were actually walking into a setup? Because that's exactly what happened to me. My name's Mira, I'm 30 years old, and 2 weeks ago, on what was supposed to be the happiest night of my life, my own mother grabbed a microphone in front of 40 people and announced that I was adopted for tax benefits. Yeah, at my birthday party. 5-star restaurant, crystal chandeliers, linen napkins folded like swans, a cake so big it needed 2 servers to carry it out, and then boom. My entire existence got reduced to a line item on a tax return. But here's the part nobody saw coming. While my mother was busy humiliating me in public, I had an envelope in my purse, and what was inside that envelope would make her run out of her own party before dessert even hit the table. Let me rewind. Because to understand how we got there, you need to know what my life looked like before that night. Growing up, I always knew I was different. Not in the dramatic movie way. Just little things, like how my sister Jenna was always introduced as our daughter, and I was just Mira. How my birthdays were quiet, low-effort dinners, while Jenna got pool parties, DJs, photographers, the whole Instagram-ready package. I learned early how to stay small, how to not ask for too much, how to smile when it felt awkward and swallow the lump in my throat when jokes were made about me, not with me, the only person who ever made me feel like I actually belonged. My grandmother, Grace. She was warm in a family that felt cold. She held my hand under the table when comments got sharp. She'd whisper things like, "You belong here more than you know, sweetheart." At the time, I thought she was just being kind. Turns out she was telling the truth in a way I wouldn't understand until much later. Now fast forward to 1 month before my birthday. It's a Thursday night, almost 8 p.m. I'm still at my desk at the architecture firm, staring at blueprints I don't even remember signing up to care about. My phone buzzes. Unknown number. Boston area code. I almost ignore it, because let's be real, unknown numbers are usually spam, but something in my gut told me to pick up. "Miss Anderson," a man says. Calm. Professional. "Yes. My name is Theodore Whitman. I was your grandmother's attorney." My heart dropped. Grandma Grace had passed away 6 months earlier. We'd already had the funeral. The will had already been read. So why was her lawyer calling me now? "There's something I need to discuss with you," he continued, "in person. It concerns documents your grandmother left, specifically for you." I straightened in my chair. "For me?" "Yes. And she was very clear about one thing," he added. "No one else in your family can know about this conversation." That's when my pulse really kicked up, because Grandma Grace didn't do drama. If she asked for secrecy, it meant something serious. We set a meeting for the next morning. After the call ended, I just sat there in the dark office, staring at nothing. Grandma Grace had left something behind. Something only for me. That same night, my phone buzzed again, the family group chat. My mother, Patricia, had sent a message. "Big news! We're throwing Myra a 30th birthday dinner at the Sterling. Saturday at 7, everyone's invited." I read it 3 times. The Sterling wasn't just fancy. It was elite. My parents had never thrown me a party like that. Not once in 30 years. A quiet voice in my head whispered, "Maybe this is different." Maybe she was finally trying. I replied, polite as always, "Wow. Thank you. I'm really surprised." Her response came instantly. "You deserve it, sweetheart." Sweetheart. She had never called me that before. I wish I'd trusted my instincts instead of my hope. The next morning, I walked into Theodore Whitman's office, and everything I thought I knew about my family cracked wide open. He slid a cream-colored envelope across the desk, sealed with wax, stamped with my grandmother's initials. "This was prepared 5 years ago," he said. "When she was completely healthy, completely lucid." Inside was a copy of her will, and my name, not just mentioned, highlighted. She had left me the entire estate, the house, the land, everything. I couldn't breathe. And then he handed me a letter, written in my grandmother's handwriting. It said something that shattered my reality in a single sentence. "You are my blood." I didn't open the smaller sealed envelope that day. She'd written on it, "Only open when absolutely necessary." I didn't know it yet, But that moment was coming fast. Because while I was learning the truth, my mother was planning my public destruction. And she thought I was walking into that birthday party, completely defenseless. She was wrong. Here's the thing nobody tells you about toxic families: they don't explode out of nowhere. They smile first. The week leading up to my birthday felt off. Too polite, too sudden, too rehearsed. My mom texted more than she had in years. Asked what dress I was wearing, suggested I do something nice with my hair. Even told me which coworkers I should invite. That alone should have been my first red flag, because Patricia Anderson never cared how I looked unless it reflected on her. Meanwhile, that envelope from my grandmother sat locked in my safe like a ticking clock. I hadn't opened the smaller sealed one yet, but just knowing it existed changed how I saw everything. I started noticing details I'd ignored my whole life. The way my mom's compliments always came with an edge, the way Jenna smirked instead of smiled, the way my dad avoided eye contact like silence was his job. 3 days before the party, I ran into Lucas, my closest friend from work at Nordstrom. I was standing there staring at a mirror, holding a green dress I had no business buying, trying to convince myself I deserved to look good for once. He looked at me and said, "You're overthinking." "I always do." I shrugged. "No," he said slowly. "This is different. You're preparing for something." And that's when it all spilled out. The lawyer. The will. The letter. I didn't tell him everything. But enough. Lucas listened without interrupting, arms crossed, jaw tight. When I finished, he said something that stuck with me. "Myra, if your family suddenly throws you a luxury birthday party, after ignoring you for 30 years, that's not growth. That's strategy." I laughed it off, but my stomach sank. "Go to that party," he added. "But don't go empty-handed." That night, I laid everything out on my bed. The will. The letter. The smaller sealed envelope I still hadn't opened. I hesitated with that one. Something about it felt like a point of no return. So I slid it into my clutch instead, just in case. The day of the party arrived. The Sterling looked like something out of a movie. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, a skyline view that screamed money, 40 guests, family friends, distant relatives, people who'd watched me grow up without ever really seeing me. My mom greeted me like we were close. Too close. "Myra, birthday girl," she said, hugging me stiffly. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. My dad shook my hand like I was a business associate. Jenna didn't even look up from her phone. And then I saw Aunt Helen, my dad's sister. The only adult who ever pushed back when I was a kid. She hugged me tight and whispered something that sent chills straight down my spine. "Whatever happens tonight, remember your grandmother would be proud of you." Whatever happens. Before I could ask, dinner started. Salmon. Wine. Polite laughter. For a moment, I almost relaxed. And that's when my mom stood up. She walked to the podium like she owned the room. Tapped the microphone. Waited. "Thank you all for coming," she said, smiling wide. "We're here to celebrate someone very special." Applause. "Mara is turning 30. She continued. "And wow, 30 years really flies, doesn't it?" I felt my shoulders tense. She paused. Just long enough. "It feels like yesterday she came into our lives." Something in her tone shifted. Subtle. Sharp. "We've done so much for her," she said. "Loved her like one of our own." That word, like, hit me hard. "I think it's time," she added, scanning the room, "that we stop pretending." The air changed. Forks stopped clinking. Whispers started. My dad stared at his plate. Jenna lifted her phone, recording. "For 30 years. My mom said calmly, we kept a secret." My heart slammed against my ribs. "Mira isn't our biological daughter." Gasps. "She was adopted." More murmurs. "And do you know why?" She smiled. "Tax benefits." The room exploded with shock. Jenna laughed. My ears rang. "She was never really family," my mom continued. "She was a financial decision." She turned to me. "I hope this doesn't upset you, sweetheart." That was the moment she expected me to break. Cry. Run. Disappear. But instead, I stood up. I felt the envelope press against my thigh like a heartbeat. And I realized something important. This wasn't just humiliation. This was an ambush. And she had no idea what I was about to do. Silence hit the room like someone slammed a door. 40 people stared at me. Some looked shocked, some looked uncomfortable. A few, mostly my mother's friends, looked satisfied. Like this was the kind of entertainment they hadn't expected but were definitely enjoying. My mom was smiling. That was the part that hurt the most. She thought she'd won. She thought I was about to crumble. Maybe whisper something embarrassed. Maybe rush out with tears streaming down my face. That's what she'd planned for. That's what she'd always planned for. But I didn't move. I stood there, straight-backed, hands steady, heart pounding, but not breaking. "Thank you, Patricia," I said calmly. Her smile twitched. "For your honesty." A ripple of confusion moved through the room. "This is really not necessary," she started. "Oh, it is?" I interrupted, still calm. "You wanted truth tonight, right? You wanted everything out in the open." My father finally looked up. Jenna's phone dipped slightly. She hadn't expected this. I scanned the room slowly. Let them feel the silence. Let them sit in it. "You're right about one thing," I continued. "It is time for the truth." I reached into my clutch. My mom stiffened. I pulled out the cream-colored envelope, sealed with wax, stamped with my grandmother's initials. "This," I said, holding it up, "is a certified copy of my grandmother's will." Whispers exploded. "That's not appropriate." My mom snapped, stepping forward. "This is a family matter." I smiled slightly. "You turned it into a public event when you called me a tax deduction." A few guests shifted uncomfortably. I opened the envelope and removed the first document. "My grandmother prepared this 5 years ago," I said. "When she was healthy, mentally sharp, and fully aware of what she was doing." My mom's face drained of color. "She left the entire Anderson estate to me." The room erupted. "That's impossible," someone said. "That house has been in the family forever." My mom grabbed the edge of the podium like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "You're lying," she hissed. "That house was supposed to go to me." I looked straight at her. It didn't. I read directly from the page, clear and slow. "I hereby bequeath the Anderson estate, including all property and contents, to my granddaughter, Myra Anderson." My father's face went gray. Jenna's mouth fell open. "But that's not even the best part," I added softly. The room went still again. I pulled out the second document. My grandmother's letter. "This letter explains why she made that choice." I unfolded it carefully and read aloud. "Myra loved me for who I was, not for what I owned. She was the only one who never made me feel like a burden." I looked up. "That's why she left it to me." My mom's composure cracked. "That senile old woman." "Careful," I said sharply. "That's my grandmother you're talking about." Aunt Helen stood up. "The will is valid," she said firmly. "I witnessed it myself." Gasps filled the room. My mom turned to my dad. "Richard, say something?" He hesitated. Then, quietly, "Maybe we should let her finish." That stunned everyone, including me. For the first time in my life, he wasn't backing my mother. I nodded once and continued. "There's something else you should all know." I pulled out the smaller sealed envelope. The one I hadn't opened until that moment. "This," I said, "contains the truth my grandmother told me to reveal only when absolutely necessary." My mom lunged forward. "Myra, don't. Whatever that is, we can talk privately." "Like how you privately planned to humiliate me tonight?" I asked coolly. Her eyes widened. "Yes," I added. "I know about the recording, the public shaming. The idea that if I was embarrassed enough, I'd disappear." Jenna froze. I broke the seal. Inside were two things. A DNA test. And an old photograph. "This test was done when I was 2, I said, voice steady. "It proves I am the biological daughter of Marcus Anderson." The room erupted. "Marcus," someone whispered. Aunt Helen stepped forward. "Marcus was Richard's older brother," she explained. "He died years ago." I turned to my father. "That makes me your niece," I said quietly. His eyes filled with tears. My mom said nothing. 30 years of silence told me everything I needed to know. "And there's one more thing," I said. I held up the DNA report again. "Marcus Anderson was not biologically related to Harold Anderson." Silence. "That means the Anderson estate," I continued, "belongs to my grandmother's bloodline." I held up the photo. And that bloodline is me. My mom staggered back like she'd been punched. The truth had finally caught her. You could hear a pin drop. 40 people, 40 stunned faces. And one woman, my mother, standing at the podium like the ground had just vanished beneath her feet. This is insane. Patricia finally snapped. Those documents could be forged. Her voice shook. They're not. Aunt Helen said calmly. There's video of Mom signing the will. Multiple witnesses. Original records locked in a safety deposit box. Patricia turned to Jenna. Say something, she whispered urgently. Jenna's face was pale. Her phone, still recording, was now pointed at the floor. I don't know what to say, Jenna murmured. The room started murmuring again. Louder this time. That woman called her a tax benefit. She planned this whole thing. Did you see the lawyer's name on that will? Patricia raised her voice, trying to regain control. This is a misunderstanding, she said sharply. A private family issue that should never have been aired like this. I met her eyes. You aired it, I said. You just didn't expect me to have a voice. She rounded on my father. Richard? Are you really going to let this happen? My father stood up slowly. For the first time in my life, he didn't look weak. He looked tired. She's telling the truth, he said quietly. And I'm done pretending she isn't family. Patricia stared at him like she didn't recognize him. After everything I've done for this family. For yourself. He corrected gently. That cut deeper than shouting ever could. Patricia's composure shattered. She slammed her hand on the podium. You ungrateful little. She started, pointing at me. I took you in. Fed you. Clothed you. You raised your niece. I said evenly. And spent 30 years reminding her she wasn't welcome. A few people nodded. Someone actually clapped. Patricia spun toward the crowd. You don't understand, she said desperately. That house was supposed to be mine. She laughed, sharp, unhinged. I decorated it, maintained it, built my life around it. You treated it like it already belonged to you, I replied. But it never did. Her face crumpled, and then she did something I never expected. She cried. Not soft tears. Ugly, gasping sobs. This isn't over, she hissed through clenched teeth. I'll contest the will. I'll drag this through court. You can try, I said calmly. But you'll lose. Aunt Helen stepped forward. And even if you didn't, she added. Everyone in this room just heard how you treated Myra. Patricia looked around desperately. No one met her eyes, not one person. That's when it hit her. She hadn't just lost the estate, she'd lost the room, the image, the control, the audience. She grabbed her coat. This party is over, she snapped. Heels clicking sharply against marble, she stormed toward the exit. No one stopped her. Jenna hesitated, then grabbed her bag and ran after her, mascara streaking down her face. The doors slammed. Silence again. Then someone exhaled loudly. My father approached me slowly. Myra, he said, voice cracking. I don't know how to make this right. I looked at him. You can't, I said honestly. But you can stop making it worse. He nodded, wiping his face. I should have protected you. Yes. I replied quietly. You should have. He flinched. But he didn't argue. Aunt Helen wrapped her arm around my shoulders. Your grandmother would be so proud, she whispered. And that's when the tears finally came. Not from humiliation. From relief. Someone in the back started singing Happy Birthday, soft at first. Then others joined in. I laughed through tears. Best birthday ever. But the story didn't end there. Because what happened after the party changed my life even more than what happened during it. The party didn't end when my mother walked out. That's the part that still surprises me. For 30 years, every family gathering had revolved around her moods. When she arrived, when she left, what she approved of. But that night, the moment Patricia disappeared through those glass doors, the room exhaled. Like everyone had been holding their breath for decades, people started approaching me, one by one. Mrs. Patterson, who'd known my grandmother since before I was born, squeezed my hands. Your grandma talked about you constantly, she said softly. You were her pride. A man I barely recognized, some distant cousin, shook his head. That took guts, he said. Real guts. Lucas appeared beside me with two champagne flutes. "I told you not to go in empty-handed," he said, clinking his glass against mine. I laughed, still half in shock. "I think I'm still processing." "You handled it like a boss," he replied. "I've never seen anything like that." But the truth was, the adrenaline was already fading, and what replaced it wasn't triumph. It was grief, because no matter how strong you are, realizing your own mother planned to destroy you in public, that hits deep. By midnight, only people who actually wanted to be there remained. Aunt Helen sat with me, finally telling me stories I'd never heard. About Marcus, my father's older brother, my real father. "He was brilliant," she said quietly. "Painted, drew, designed things with his hands that felt alive." Her voice cracked. "He loved you more than anything. Losing his life the way he did it broke him." I listened, heart aching over a man I'd never known, but somehow always missed. A week later, the fallout hit. Hard. Boston society moves fast when gossip smells like blood. Word spread. Screenshots leaked. Someone from the party shared the story. My mother disappeared from her charity boards overnight. No luncheons. No garden club meetings. No smiling photos online. Jenna lost thousands of followers in days. Brands quietly cut ties. Turns out cruelty doesn't sell well when it's caught on camera. Then my father called. We met at a quiet cafe far from familiar places. He looked older, smaller. "I failed you," he said immediately. I didn't interrupt. "I knew," he continued. "About Marcus. About you. I let Patricia control the narrative because it was easier than fighting." "Easier for who?" I asked. He swallowed. "For me. I didn't forgive him that day. But I didn't walk away either." "This isn't the end," I told him, "but it's not a reset button." He nodded. "I understand." 2 weeks later, I finally went to the estate. The house was empty. Patricia and Jenna had moved out quietly. Walking through those rooms felt surreal, like stepping through memories that never belonged to me until now. Then I went upstairs. Grandma Grace's room. Her closet still smelled like lavender. Behind old coats and boxes, I found a worn cardboard container. Inside were photographs. Marcus as a boy, Marcus as a teenager, Marcus holding a baby, me, on the back of one photo in my grandmother's handwriting, Marcus and Myra, my two greatest loves. I sat on the floor and cried. Not because I was sad. Because for the first time in my life, I felt rooted. 3 weeks later, Jenna called. I almost didn't answer. "Please don't hang up," she said immediately. We met somewhere neutral. A coffee shop far from our old world. She looked different, smaller, less polished. "I'm not here to apologize," she said quietly. "I'm not ready for that." "Then why are you here?" I asked. She stared at her cup. "I need to understand why Grandma loved you more." I took a breath. "She didn't love me more," I said. "She just knew the truth." Jenna's voice cracked. "I thought you were the outsider. But maybe I was." I didn't promise her anything, but I didn't close the door either. A month later I made a list. Not revenge, boundaries. Patricia, no contact. Richard, limited contact, rebuilding slowly. Jenna, wait and see. Aunt Helen, family. Then I did something that changed everything. I created the Marcus Anderson Memorial Scholarship for kids aging out of foster care. Kids who'd never been chosen. Because my father never got a second chance. But maybe someone else could. The first recipient was a 17-year-old girl named Maya. She hugged me and whispered, "Thank you for making me feel like I matter." I smiled. "You always did." And for the first time, I believed it about myself too. 2 months after the party, the estate stopped feeling like a battlefield. At first, every room echoed with old tension, unspoken rules, forced smiles, memories of being tolerated instead of welcomed. I'd walk through the halls and feel like a guest in a house that technically belonged to me, but emotionally still felt foreign. So I started small. I didn't redecorate out of spite. I didn't erase the past. I reclaimed space. Grandma Grace's bedroom was the first place I touched. I turned it into something sacred. Her photographs lined the mantel. Marcus's artwork, pieces Aunt Helen had kept hidden for decades, hung on the walls. That portrait of me as a baby, painted by a man I never met but somehow knew intimately, sat at the center. It wasn't a shrine. It was acknowledgement. This house wasn't built on control, it was built on love that had been buried but never died. One quiet afternoon, Aunt Helen joined me there. She sat on the edge of the bed and sighed. "You know," she said, "your grandmother fought battles none of us saw." I looked at her. "She tried to protect you in the only way she knew how. With preparation. With truth. With time." I nodded. "I wish she'd told me sooner." "So did she," Aunt Helen replied softly, "but sometimes love shows up late and loud." The memorial came next. Not a funeral. Not closure. A beginning. We gathered in the garden, where Grandma Grace and I used to talk when things inside the house felt heavy. Candles flickered as dusk settled. I stood in front of a small group: Aunt Helen, Richard, a few of Grandma Grace's old friends, Lucas, and Maya. I held my voice steady. "For most of my life, I thought belonging was something you had to earn," I said. "Like a membership card someone else approved." I paused. "But the truth is, belonging starts with knowing who you are." I lit 2 candles. One for Grandma Grace. One for Marcus. "I didn't know my father," I continued, "but I carry him in my face, my hands, my stubbornness." Richard wiped his eyes. Aunt Helen squeezed my hand. We stood in silence, not broken, not bitter. Whole. The scholarship launched quietly at first. No flashy banners, no ego, just intention. 10 young artists displayed their work at the estate. Kids who'd grown up feeling disposable, unseen. I watched them explain their pieces with shaking hands and fierce pride. Maya tugged my sleeve. "Did you ever feel like you didn't belong anywhere?" she asked. I smiled gently. "Every day. Until I stopped asking permission." She hugged me like it mattered. Because it did. Later that night, I sat alone in Grandma Grace's room. Boston's lights glittered through the window. I thought about what I'd lost. The illusion of a loving mother, the hope that if I tried harder I'd be chosen. And then I thought about what I'd gained. Truth. Roots. Purpose. I opened my phone and typed a note titled, "Things I Know Now." 1. I don't need permission to belong. 2. Boundaries aren't cruelty, they're self-respect. 3. Love doesn't require humiliation. 4. Family is defined by truth, not control. I saved it. Then I did something I'd never done before. I slept peacefully in that house. No anxiety, no waiting for approval, just rest. The next morning, I woke up knowing something fundamental had shifted. I wasn't surviving anymore. I was building. Just when life finally felt quiet, it tested me one more time. 3 months after the party, after the dust settled, after the house started to feel like mine, I got a message I wasn't expecting. "Patricia," no apology, no explanation. Just 6 words: "We need to talk. It's important." I stared at the screen for a long time. This was the woman who humiliated me in front of 40 people. Who tried to erase me so she could keep a house that was never hers. Who spent 30 years shrinking me so she could feel taller. My first instinct was simple. No response. Boundaries mean nothing if you break them the first time someone knocks. But something stopped me. Not guilt. Not obligation. Clarity. I wasn't afraid of her anymore. And when you're no longer afraid, you get to choose. Not react. I replied with 1 sentence. "You can write whatever you need to say." Her response came fast. "I can't. This needs to be in person." Of course it did. Control always wants proximity. I didn't answer again. 2 days later Richard called. "She's not doing well," he said quietly. "She's unraveling." I closed my eyes. "I'm not responsible for that," I said. "I know," he replied. "I just thought you should know." That night, I sat alone in the living room. The same room where I used to feel invisible during holidays. Now it was quiet. Safe. I asked myself one hard question: what would meeting her give me? Closure. I already had it. An apology. If it hadn't come yet, it never would. Power. I already had that too. And that's when I understood something important. Sometimes the strongest ending isn't confrontation. It's absence. A week later, Jenna showed up unannounced. I opened the door and barely recognized her. No makeup. Eyes tired. Confidence gone. "Can I come in?" she asked softly. I hesitated, then stepped aside. She sat on the couch like a guest who knew she didn't deserve the seat. "I moved out," she said. "I couldn't stay there anymore." I didn't comment. "I didn't know who I was without Mom," she continued. "And that scared me." She looked at me. I used to think you were weak. I raised an eyebrow. She swallowed. But you're the strongest one in this family. That was new. I'm not asking for forgiveness, she said quickly. I'm asking for distance with honesty. Not lies. I considered her words. Then here's the truth, I said. We don't get a clean slate. We get a cautious one. She nodded. That's fair. And for the first time in our lives, it actually was. After she left, I walked through the house slowly. Every room held a version of me that no longer existed. The girl who stayed quiet. The girl who waited. The girl who believed love had to be earned. I stood in front of the front door and smiled. I didn't need to open every door just because someone knocked. Some doors close so you can finally breathe. The next morning, I hosted a small breakfast at the estate. No drama, no hierarchy, just people who chose me. Aunt Helen, Lucas, Maya, 2 scholarship recipients laughing in the garden. I watched them and felt something settle deep in my chest. This wasn't revenge. This was peace. And peace, I realized, is the loudest answer of all. A year has passed since that night. The night my mother tried to erase me in front of 40 people. And accidentally gave me my life back. If you'd asked me back then what I wanted, I would have said justice. Vindication. Maybe even revenge. But standing here now, in the quiet of the estate that finally feels like home, I understand something deeper. What I really wanted was freedom. Freedom from auditioning for love. Freedom from shrinking to make other people comfortable. Freedom from believing I needed permission to belong. The house doesn't feel haunted anymore. It feels alive. Laughter fills the garden now. Real laughter, not forced politeness. The scholarship program has grown. More kids, more art, more futures being rewritten. Sometimes I watch them and think about Marcus, the man who never got a second chance. The father who loved me before I could remember him. I carry him with me, not as a loss, but as a compass. Richard and I are rebuilding. Slowly, carefully. Trust doesn't regenerate overnight, but effort counts. He shows up now, listens more than he speaks. That matters. Jenna and I speak occasionally. Not sisters. Not enemies. 2 people learning who they are without someone else scripting their roles. And Patricia. I haven't seen her. I heard she tells people her daughter turned on her. That she was betrayed. I don't correct the story. Because the truth doesn't need defending anymore. Here's what I've learned. And if you've made it this far, maybe you need to hear it too. You do not have to earn your right to exist. You do not have to stay silent to keep the peace. You do not owe loyalty to people who weaponize love. Family isn't who claims you. It's who protects your dignity. For 30 years, I thought belonging was something external. Something granted. It isn't. Belonging begins the moment you stop asking for permission to take up space. The moment you say I am enough. Even if you don't agree. That birthday party didn't end my life. It started it. And if you're watching this thinking, this feels uncomfortably familiar. If you've ever been made to feel like an outsider in your own family, if you've ever swallowed your truth just to keep the room calm, if you've ever been told, directly or quietly, that you were lucky to be tolerated, I want you to hear this clearly. You don't need their approval. You never did. The people who matter will choose you, and the ones who don't. Let them watch from the outside as you build something better. Because sometimes the greatest revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's living so fully, they no longer matter at all. Thank you for staying with me until the end. And if this story meant something to you, tell me. Where are you watching from? You're not alone. You never were.